Hi, this is Constance from Mrs. T Weddings. I'm here doing another lockdown live, and today I'm going to be joined by Georgia-Beth Photography. Georgia-Beth is a lovely photographer who is a relatively local photographer to me. We only met recently, so it's very exciting to be able to invite her on and to have a chat. We haven't actually worked together yet, so I've been a big admirer of her work, but haven't managed to see her in action yet. So I'm very excited to hear what she's going to say to us. Now, I just need to try and get her to join. So let me see where she is. Thank you for hanging on for me while I just locate her. We got her. Where is she? Let's see. Hannah, if you're there, could you see if Georgia's able to join for me, please? It'd be really great to get her on board. Not too sure where she is. The fun of lives. We will get there shortly, I am sure. So Georgia, lives relatively near to me, but I believe covers everywhere. So although she's locally close to me, which is brilliant, it means that we can cover weddings pretty much anywhere. And you'll have seen on my grid a few days ago, when was it? It was last week one day, there she is, right? I did a post of hers and gorgeous autumnal colours and a couple underneath all the beautiful leaves. So she's got a real eye for colour and beauty, and there she is. Oh look, she's surrounded by colour. I love that. I've just been talking about all the colour and there you are in it.
Yeah.
Fabulous. How are you?
Yeah, really good, thanks.
Good.
Are you all right?
Yeah, really good, thank you. So I've just been chatting to everyone about what you do, but I've been blagging it probably. What I'd like is for you to tell everyone what you do. Tell everyone a little bit about your photography and where you're based and things like that, just to give people a bit of an introduction.
Yeah, of course. So I am Georgie McGilly and I'm based in Northamptonshire, but I do cover the whole of the Midlands and actually the whole of the UK in general,
Okay.
although I'm usually based in the Midlands. And yeah, I'm a wedding and lifestyle photographer, so I do weddings as well as families and newborns and like kind of professional branding and things like that as well. So
Brilliant.
yeah.
And how long have you been doing it for? Has this been your whole career, or have you had a life before photography?
No, so I used to work with kids in a school, like with kids with special needs and stuff.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so I've only been doing this full time for about 2.5 years now, but I have been doing it on the side for probably nearly 5 years. So yeah.
Wow. So when you have to do the lifestyle shoots with kids, you're pretty good at making sure the magic happens.
Yeah, you've had a few years of working with them, so it makes it easier, doesn't it? Knowing how to deal with them and stuff.
Exactly. Brilliant. Okay, fab. So the reason that we got in touch with each other was because of Sweet 15. You were keen to get involved with what we were doing with these micro wedding packages, and then we managed to thankfully meet just before lockdown.
Yeah,
It was like the day before lockdown we met for coffee, and it was really lovely, and that was thanks to Rachel Sokal, who's probably out there listening at some point, that put us in touch with each other. So I think it's really fabulous that you're so keen to support all the micro weddings. I think you've done a few, haven't you? You did some before lockdown, didn't you? Tell us a little bit about those.
They went really well, actually. So I had, and was meant to have a summer of weddings, and it ended up just being 3. But
everyone feels the pain.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone knows what it's been like it's been a very strange year, hasn't it? But yeah, those weddings were really beautiful, and there was a couple where they'd just originally planned to have a big wedding, and they decided, nah, we just want to get married, let's go for it, which I just love. And I actually really love this kind of concept of the micro weddings, because there's a lot of couples I know that just want to be married and can't wait to start their married life. So it's really lovely to see people just going for it, even if they're not kind of having that big dream day that they originally wanted.
Yeah.
They can still have a really magical day that's celebrating their love and stuff. So I really love that. And then I had one wedding as well that they just missed the 30 people. So they planned for the 30 people, and their wedding was on the Tuesday. That Monday that it changed to 15. So bless them, they'd had a bit of a crazy whirlwind of cutting everybody down again.
Goodness, that must have been painful for them.
Yeah, I think it was hard because they'd kind of decided, okay, we're not going to have the big wedding, that's okay, 30 okay. And then my heart definitely goes out to a lot of the couples that have had to deal with that the last years and stuff.
It's been an emotional journey for everyone, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But the good thing is that when those weddings happen, they're magical, right? So these intimate weddings, these micro weddings are just so special that you know, they'll never be forgotten. Nobody will ever say, oh, which wedding were we at that summer? You know, everyone will always remember the wedding that was the micro intimate wedding in, you know, 2020, 2021.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's a lot of people have been watching it online, and it's actually really memorable for those people as well who've been sat at home watching it live. I know I've got friends who've been at weddings that have watched it live, and they kind of all got dressed up for the occasion, even though nobody can see them the other side. And it's actually been a really beautiful way to incorporate them in the wedding, even if they can't physically be there. So there's definitely ways of doing it without, you know, even within the restrictions.
Without excluding everyone. I had a bride that I was speaking to on Friday, Sarah, and they did the same thing where they had it on Zoom, and you know, they said that it was just brilliant, and they did it through a webcam, so they were able to talk to each other, and they said, you know, even the people that were on the other side of the Zoom call were able to hear the vows better than had they been in the congregation. So actually they got the best view in the house. So there are lots of benefits out there, and there's so many fun ways that you can incorporate them, which I know is, you know, we can talk about another time, but let's talk about you. So tell me a little bit what it is that you know, you've mentioned you do all sorts of different types of photography, but what is it that really drives you to continue in the wedding industry and really makes you love photographing weddings?
I just love photographing love. So I do love doing branding and things like that, but I really love photographing people's relationships and kind of helping them create genuine moments to capture. I'm definitely I'm all for like the posed shot where you are standing and smiling so that the grandparents can put it on the mantelpiece sort of thing. I do really love getting those really natural moments of people just, you know, a couple just laughing with each other, enjoying their day, being happy they're married, and just all those kind of really, they're one of a kind moments, aren't they? So it's
really special.
I feel really honoured to be able to actually capture those for them, because they're photographs that they're going to look on for years and years to come. And so it's definitely really special.
It's a massively important part of the day who the photographer is, I think, you know, because you're really close and you're really kind of a part of that very tight circle, and you know, you see those most intimate moments, and I think it's, you know, it's so important that you really trust and know your photographer, but also that the photographer gets you as a couple. And you know, that's how you get those magical moments, isn't it? By really understanding the right cues to give that couple to get the reactions and the gestures that you need to capture those moments.
Yeah, exactly.
What are your favorite kind of cues have you got any secret give us one nugget of what you said?
I usually tell them, so it depends. I kind of have like a process usually, and obviously because you do get to know the couple quite a bit beforehand, not every cue that's in my head I will use, because they're not necessarily, I know they're not that kind of couple, if that makes sense. So kind of nice that I have that opportunity to meet them several times before the wedding day and actually really get to know them. But I do. I mean, one that works quite a lot usually is you've got them kind of like having a little cuddle at some point, and then you tell the groom to say what he thinks looks most sexy on the bride. Just whisper it as quiet as he can in her ear, and that always produces some sort of laugh or smile. And I'll go right back and I'll be like, I'm not listening, you know, sort of just say, just whisper it really quietly, and that's always like really cute. But it's also a nice chance for them to have that kind of almost conversation, which might not actually happen in the busyness of the day as well. So
definitely. Oh, I just had a message from Jodie saying, Georgie's incredible. She took photos of me for the first time. I was so nervous as I'm not the most photogenic. Never say that about yourself. However, she made me laugh and smile, took photos at the right angle. She was amazing. What a lovely advocate.
It's lovely. She was great. Yeah, she had a little brand. She's a YouTuber actually, so go and check her out, Jodie Eyeball. But yeah, she had a branding session with me within that gap of lockdown when we were free, or a little bit more free anyway. She did great. She was brilliant. You wouldn't have thought she was nervous.
So I guess, you know, I've seen earlier somebody else kind of was mentioning that they thought that you were really, you know, they were another big advocate singing your praises, saying that you were very natural with how you work with your couples and your style. How would you describe your photography style? Because there's so many different types of photographers out there that as a bride or a groom, it's really overwhelming to go, I've been told I need a photographer. Wow, look at them all.
Yeah,
how do I
choose? It is really hard. And I think it's lovely that photographers do have quite specific styles in general, because then when you know what sort of look you want to go for, then you can go for those photographers. So I'd say I'm very light and bright. So I'm not so there's kind of I guess there's in my head anyway, I'd have to ask other photographers, but there's kind of a spectrum of photography style, as in kind of the way we edit our photos. Mainly a lot of it is down to how the camera works, but it's usually the way we edit it. And there's the kind of real dark, rich, moody sort of thing, and then it kind of gradually goes to the very light and airy and creamy sort of colors. And I'm probably like close to that end, but not quite that way, because I like you were saying before I came on, like I really like bright colors. So I'm definitely light because I love those sort of creamy textures, but I also like to bring out the more vibrant colors as well, if that makes sense. So
so when they go onto your grid, they're not just going to see kind of creams and whites and blushes, they're going to see pops of color, but it's not going to be those dark kind of like Parisian chic style. It's going to be more like using natural light and feeling very kind of ethereal in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Very natural. I mean, when I sort of describe it to most people, I do just say I'm natural light, natural colors, natural moments, natural reactions, that kind of thing. I don't like to be over posed or over edited, or if that makes sense.
You're not kind of going for the editorial in Vogue.
Exactly that.
Which I think, you know, most people, when I speak to my couples, the first thing they always say is we just want something natural. Like, we've never been in front of the camera before, we're not really sure how this works, we're not really kind of, you know, the kind of people that want to do loads of posed photos. And, you know, I always say, well, you know, try and just go for somebody that, you know, is going to do more documentary, more natural, and not make you stand in posed positions for hours, where you'd rather be with your guests and socializing, and for your photographer to capture those candid moments throughout the day, right?
Exactly. That's exactly that.
So speaking of those candid moments throughout the day, what is your favorite part of the wedding day? Because you see it all, don't you? So tell me, how does the day work for you? Talk us through your wedding experience.
Okay, so I do offer different packages. So there are some couples that will just want me for the kind of main sections of the day. So I'll just arrive just before everybody arrives at the church, and kind of capture everybody arriving, do the ceremony, do the kind of beginning of, have portraits and all that kind of thing, and then have speeches and things and leave. And that's kind of like a small section of the day. But in general, most, especially if it's your first wedding, you want every moment captured, right? So I will tend to go to the bride's house quite early in the morning and start capturing little details like her shoes and her jewelry, and maybe the invitation suite, all those sort of little things. Then as the hairdresser arrives and makeup artist, and kind of capture all those moments, and the bridesmaids having drinks and all that. And for me, it's kind of a bit of a toss-up between that. I absolutely love that time, because it's kind of all that nervous excitement and really precious moments with the bride, with her family. And sometimes I do go, depending on where the groom is, I will go to the groom's.
If they're quite close, you can nip over and cover both. And
then also if it's a later in the afternoon wedding as well. So if we have a sort of 3 p.m, 4 p.m. ceremony, I've got plenty of time to go to both. Whereas if it's more like an 11 a.m. one, then I'll stick to being the bride. But it totally depends. Quite often with a lot of couples, the groom doesn't tend to want as many photos as the bride does. So,
I don't feel like the groom ever has quite the level of kind of bubbly excitement going on in the room.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit different. It is a bit different. So,
not as many hair and makeup artists flying around, I guess. That makes a difference.
yeah, it does. You're right. Yeah, and I think a lot of the time, I mean, traditionally, obviously, people get married within the bride's hometown, although that's very different now. But I do tend to have a lot of weddings where they do go for that more traditional kind of way. So wherever they're getting ready, the bride tends to have a lot of family around, whereas the groom might be getting ready in a hotel or one of his mates' houses, but not necessarily have as much family around in the early morning kind of stage.
Definitely.
It really depends, but yeah. So
that's the morning.
And then I will just travel over to the ceremony before the bride gets there, obviously. So I'll get some pictures of the groom kind of nervously waiting, and which is always lovely, and families coming in and that kind of thing, because that's really nice as well, because quite often you've got at a wedding, it's the only time you see your whole family, isn't it? So,
absolutely.
You do quite often get some really nice moments of aunties and uncles and grandparents sort of embracing, and all those sort of really precious family reuniting sort of moments.
Absolutely.
And then it's kind of pretty much straightforward from there. Obviously, every wedding's slightly different, but in general, you have a ceremony, then you move on to your reception. So, but like you asked with my favourite, it is definitely a toss-up between getting ready in the morning, and then also those sort of like more private moments with the portraits. Because usually the couple have not been in the same house together the night before, and then they had all this hustle and bustle in the morning, got married, all this sort of excitement, nervousness, actually said vows in front of all their friends and family. Then now suddenly they can breathe because there's not really anyone else around.
And so you go, oh my goodness, we're married.
Yeah, exactly.
How did that happen?
Yeah.
It was a blur.
And I think it is like that for a lot of us. I know definitely on my wedding it's the same. You just kind of really overwhelmed and everything's exciting and busy, and then suddenly you're like, oh, it's done.
And also it is like you say, that morning, it's half of, let's say probably the most important day of your life, bar having children, and that half of that day you're not together. That's the weirdest thing, is you've got so much to tell the other. You're like, and then this happened, and then we're Mr. and Mr. and Mrs. or whatever it is, and it's just so much to kind of verbal diarrhea at each other.
It is, I totally agree, and I definitely take that into account with the portrait time. I tend to I prepare my couples quite a lot before the wedding, and give them kind of a bit of an example timeline from the point of view of a photographer, just to kind of say, you know what, it's actually really good to make sure you've got at least half an hour here for this, or and that kind of thing. Just a few different things. Like quite a lot of people will have heard the phrase golden hour, which is our dream time to photograph people, but that will usually be kind of halfway through the reception. So I obviously advise the couple to make sure you've not got your speeches slap bang there, because it's really lovely to get some photos as the sun's setting and things like that. But that kind of couple time straight after the ceremony, I always make sure that they choose somewhere that they can kind of go for a walk together, if that makes sense. So as we start the portraits, I'll just say, just hold hands, go for a walk, and I'll kind of like 100 meters further ahead and maybe take some pictures, but in general just give them a chance to just breathe and relax for a few minutes before I start telling them what to do. And then it's really lovely that we did that on our wedding day. And I remember we were walking through a field, and I got a bit of corn or something in my shoe, and a photographer captured the moment of my husband taking my shoe off my foot and getting the corn out for me and putting it back on, and he looked like the most wonderful husband, so dutiful. It was a really cute picture, and it was really candid. It was the reality of what was happening, walking through a field. So I had open-toed shoes, so of course it wasn't going to be great. But it's really lovely, those moments, as you say, going for that little walk and that moment together. So I love that. So what do you think, why, what is it that makes you think a photographer stands out? What is it that makes a photographer differentiate themselves? There's obviously a lot of things, and we've gone over a few things like style and all those sort of things, which is definitely, I will say to my couples, like, if you want a specific photography style, look at my photos, because I'm not going to edit my photos in that my neutral moody tone, or the really, really light, bright, creamy sort of tone. This is my style. So if this isn't how you want your photos to turn out, then go and find someone else. And I'm not worried about that, because I definitely have a specific style. So I want couples to book me because they want that style, not for any other reason. But I think for me as well, a big part of me and my brand is me, obviously.
I was going to say, it's a personality, right?
Yeah, massively. And I think I actually end up, and I can't remember who I was talking to very recently, who was asking me similar questions. And I realized just within that conversation, it might have actually when we
met up, maybe.
But I realized that I actually get a lot of shy couples.
Oh, you did mention this. Yeah, I was going to say about that. Did you see a theme? Yeah. Yeah,
and I think a lot of that's down to the way I am as a person. I mean, I try to be as friendly as possible and make people feel as comfortable as possible.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, those couples, like what you were saying earlier, who said, like, well, we've never been in front of a camera before. We don't really inside that. And I think a lot of people get that feeling, like inside, the thought of a camera in front of me, like, makes me feel sick. I don't want, but you do want your special day captured. You do want to have those nice photos that you can look back on. And so it's the one day that, you might not ever pay for a professional photographer again.
Exactly.
Some
That's
people
a really
don't.
good point. Yeah.
But for this day, you are wanting to. So, so it's lovely to have those couples who rely on me to kind of make them feel comfortable and stuff. And I think a big part of that is just things like this, being able to just talk on Instagram and on social media. And
you're really good at that. You're really good at being out there and people hearing your voice and knowing who you are, so they know who they're buying into.
Yeah, and I think that's a big, definitely, especially for a photographer, because you are with them the whole day.
And that getting ready time is really personal. You're going to see the most intimate things, whether it be those intimate moments, of when the father of the bride sees the bride for the first time. That's one of the most special moments. Or whether it's literally the bride in her underwear getting into the dress. There's no secrets from you, are there?
No, I mean, the amount of times that I've physically done up a dress and then got the mum to pretend she's done it up. And like that. Like,
I think every wedding pretty much has that moment.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it up so I know what I'm doing, but you quickly jump in for the photo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant. A planner is often that person as well.
Yeah, I can imagine,
The secret life of a planner. Getting it all prepped for the photo. Brilliant. And so tell me, so you tend to have quite shy couples, or couples that need you maybe just to coax them out of themselves a little bit to feel comfortable in front of the camera. Are there other things that you find you get in general? Are there any favorite venues that you work with, or any areas of the country that you particularly, I know you said mainly Midlands, but you cover everywhere. Is there any kind of theme in, I don't know, marquee weddings, barn weddings? Do you get a real kind of feel for anything else that really
I definitely have places that are my sort of favorite sorts of place. I love I've grown up actually all over the world. I've lived in lots of different places, but I love English countryside. I love being British. And I think big, beautiful British country houses and things like that, I think are really beautiful places to get married in, and kind of nice gardens and all that kind of thing. I really love that. And I've definitely done a variety of weddings, and there are certain places that I have worked at more often, just kind of almost by fluke to an extent, just because of the local area and the types of couples I think that I attract a bit more. So there's a place near me called Grendon Lakes, and they're pretty much like a log cabin, but it's right on some really beautiful lakes, and so that's really lovely there. And they've got a great team there and stuff. So but they've got a really beautiful surroundings. So definitely English countryside. I love
some big grounds,
big gardens, big houses. Pretty flowers in the summer and spring and that kind of thing.
Lovely. And so I guess for those couples out there, we'll talk about the more intimate weddings and what's going on at the moment later on. But for the time being, tell me, for couples, it is really intimidating booking a photographer. One, as you said, it's probably the only time they're going to have a professional photographer booked for them. They don't really know what they want but they know kind of what they want, so they can kind of figure it out stylistically if you're right for them, probably from looking at Instagram and your website and things like that, Facebook. But what's the process, you know, if we make it really simple, because it is intimidating, and the amount of money that people are spending and things, it's all very intimidating in the wedding industry. So tell me, how do they go, you know, from, let's say, first inquiry through to the wedding day? How does that process work?
Okay, so it really depends on where they've inquired, actually, because a lot of people will find, I do find Instagram, I tend to get quite a lot of couples find me on Instagram, and now we'll sort of start messaging backwards and forwards. And then it's nice that they found me on Instagram, because again, like I was saying, I know that they've seen my face a bit more, because I do try and, at least in the weekdays, I try and come on Instagram stories every morning.
Wow, that's really impressive. Huge.
Just pop on very quickly, but it's nice to know that then they've probably seen my face and know how I talk and that kind of thing, which is great. And then I feel a bit, almost in myself, I feel a bit more confident to chat to them, because I feel like they've picked me because they know what I'm like as well. But then there's the kind of, have they seen my prices and that sort of thing. So I actually have my prices on my website, which just makes things really easy. You don't have to message me to find out how much everything is. So if people contact me through my website, then at least I don't have that process of telling them how much everything costs and stuff. So if they've inquired through my website, then we will just kind of, I usually arrange a phone call to kind of chat, just ask them about themselves as a couple, get to know them a little bit, let them get to know me a bit. I tend to book a video call for the same reason, again, because they get to see my face, but some people prefer to just chat on the phone, which is fine. And then so have a little chat and then figure out what they want from their wedding. And I think a lot of people in their heads, they might look at the price and know what package they want to go for, but then when you actually chat to them about it, they realize, oh, actually I don't want to miss that moment being captured, and those sort of things. So then they might go for a bit of a bigger package, because they realize that they don't want to miss out on all those moments in the day being captured, which is lovely. And then from there I send the boring bit. So send out like some paperwork, so just contracts and invoices stuff, and they'll pay a deposit. And then after that I send out, like what I was saying, an example timeline. So because with photographers, same as wedding planners and stuff, we'll get booked quite early on, don't we? So in general, although with the micro weddings now
it's all last minute now.
Last minute. But normally we would get booked further in advance, so it's nice to have that kind of jump in time to be able to say, if you really want these sorts of photos, then make sure you grab a time slot there, or give enough time for this. And then I get a chance to, usually once I've given that, I'll give it a few months, and then have at the minute video call, but I will try and meet up with them for coffee. Just have a little bit more of a chat through exactly what they're having on the day, and hopefully by then they've got a few more ideas, because sometimes when I'm first booked, they booked the venue and that's it, they haven't done anything else. So you're kind of
number, you know, it's sort of venue, caterer, photographer are the kind of top three, aren't they, that you need to get booked as soon as possible? So I tend to do the kind of first meet up about 6 months before the wedding, give them a chance to chat and stuff, and I always offer all my couples an engagement session. Brilliant. Which is great, because it gives them an opportunity to kind of know how I work, like physically in person. I always suggest it to my couples, because it's the best way to get comfortable in front of the camera, you know, at a time when it really doesn't matter, you know. And so then you can really get to trust a photographer, get to know each other, because also you're learning how your couple works in front of the camera, you know, your partner, because they might suddenly become this totally different person, you know, the camera's on, they're like, wow. So exactly. I mean, it's really important to kind of gauge that well in advance. Definitely. And it helps them get to you. I know, even with myself and my husband, I've got a good friend who's a photographer as well, and she photographed us as a family before as well. And when we're together, I'm like, I don't even know what to do. I'm like, I guide all these people all the time, and then as soon as I'm in front of the camera, I'm like, how do I be a couple? I need to get in my own head. So I totally get being in their shoes. But so I always offer an engagement session pretty much. So after they've booked, I'll say, and sometimes that comes up in conversation before they've even booked anyway. Depending on what we talk about. But I offer that, and I actually
they'll pay for the engagement session, but then I always take that off the cost of their wedding package as well. So it's kind of like a no, I don't know what the word is, but they're not gonna.
Yeah, they don't lose the money. Like, they're not paying twice.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not, I mean, even if they felt awkward and they didn't love the photos, at least they've had that chance to kind of warm up. But to be honest, I haven't had anybody say they didn't love the photos. So that's great. So far, fingers crossed. But yeah, so that's really nice to have that, and then have a coffee, properly chat through their day, figure out exactly what they want when. Then I send soon after that, and I'll talk through my example, kind of stereotypical, like what their group portraits might be, and things like that, and prepare them for stuff like what I was talking about in the details in the morning. I will give them a list of like, just pop these things in a basket, like a few days before, so that in the morning you're not panicking, like, where's the rings, where's this, where's that. If you're ready, I can just walk in and leave you to it. And
perfect. That's such a good idea.
Preparation is the main thing, and then I'll meet up with them much closer to the date, usually about 4 weeks before, to just finalize everything and stuff before the day, which is lovely. But,
and then it's the day, and then you're there. Fabulous. And so, I mean, you've made it it sounds very simple, and I think the thing that's really important about working with you for the couples to understand is you put a lot of energy into building that relationship, don't you? You make sure that when it comes to their wedding day, you know each other and there's no kind of anxiety or surprises, which, you know, is a huge commitment by you, both, you know, time wise and energy wise, as well as emotionally. You know, you're really bringing them into your fold early on, which not all photographers do. So I think, you know, that's a really nice thing to hear and very reassuring for couples out there. Okay, so now let's, you know, admit what's going on at the moment. It's not great. We're in the middle of the pandemic. Okay, fine. But we've got, you know, we've got solutions on the horizon. Very exciting news this week in so many ways. But I think, you know, it's been a really tough year for the wedding industry. Can't ignore that fact. It's also been incredibly tough on all those couples that have had to do all sorts of different things, whether it be postpone, downsize, have their, you know, pre-wedding, before the wedding, whatever it is. You know, they've done all sorts of different things, and everyone's been very creative and dynamic in trying to adapt. But I guess, you know, what would be your advice to those that are having to adapt or are planning a wedding at the moment? What's your kind of top tip for those couples?
To be honest, I think one of the first things I normally say to any of my couples, for whatever year it is, is actually just remembering that it's your day. It's your special day, your moment in your life, and you want to be able to look back on it and have precious memories and happy memories, and not kind of, and even when it comes down to, I actually just filmed a YouTube video on guest lists and who to invite and stuff, and I think when it comes down to even things like that, like who you've invited, which is even more difficult and important at the minute because of the restriction of amount of people that you have, you want to be able to look back and just remember a really joyful time, and so I think it's hard because at the minute I've actually had a couple of couples booked recently who've said they've been really happy about the restrictions because it removed that great aunt who we feel obliged to invite, but we don't really want
the obligatory invitation is null and void, right? Like you're only getting an invite if we really want you there as a couple.
Exactly. And I think that is my advice, is just make sure that you've got the people there that you really love, that you're not going to look back and be like, I really, really regretted not inviting them, but then at the same time not going to look back and be like, I actually really regretted inviting them, which is a sad thing to think about. But we all have different people who we do love, but we might not necessarily want at that day. And so
and you can party with those friends anytime, we hope, in the future, whereas witnessing the actual marriage, you know, and this is, you know, something that I've been banging on about. I feel, you know, that this is a reframe. This is no longer about planning a wedding party. This is about planning a marriage, planning a wedding marriage. And so it's really about thinking about who are those people that I want to witness this, you know, legal or, you know, this very sentimental moment. as we transition into, you know, I to we. And I think it's, you know, that kind of change, that reframes how you think of your guests, because you don't want the big party animal there, because they're going to be bored. You know, they're not going to be that interested in the romance of it. Whereas potentially, you know, the quieter friend, or, you know, the relative that you're very close to but wouldn't have been front and center when the band were playing, would be the right people to have at the more intimate moment.
Yeah, that's exactly it. You kind of want all the ones who are going to have a box of tissues on their lap, don't you? So you want the ones who are really love being there. And I'm one of those people anyway, at anybody's wedding. I've cried at clients' weddings before because I just love and I love seeing people get married and you know, joining their lives together and stuff. But yeah, like you say, you definitely want people there who are going to really cherish being there and be grateful for being there, because there will be people who just love you and love to have fun with you, but they're not really that bothered about seeing you say I do, you know, and because they know you before and they know you after, and it's fine.
For them there's not a big gear shift change, whereas you know, parents, people like that in general, is going to be a very big gear shift change in their heads, you know, and emotionally. So no, I think that's really good advice. And so I guess you know, at the moment we're doing these micro wedding, well, not right now, clearly. In the next few weeks, hopefully we'll start being able to do the big wedding, or not big weddings, some weddings again. Have you, you know, for Sweet 15, you've put together some packages. So am I right in thinking that you're basing it on hours, aren't you, for these? So talk to us a little bit about how you would change your model for the smaller weddings.
Yeah, exactly. So normally the way my packages work, and if anybody goes on my website, they'll see that it is based more on what part of the wedding I'm there for. Whereas for the micro weddings, obviously it's really different, and it's never going to be as long as a big wedding. You probably, depending on the rules at the time, you probably won't be able to have me at the house. So it really is just capturing those really special moments. So I think my smallest package I gave you was like a 2-hour one. So which just means that you've got time to have me there kind of at the beginning, just before the ceremony, as people are arriving, doing the ceremony, and then having portraits afterwards. That's generally the amount of time that you'd need, because I need to get there early enough before everybody turns up and kind of leave after everybody's gone. So and then so it's definitely, I've just changed it to be hours because it just makes it a lot more flexible, a lot easier. So then if people are like, well, we're just, as soon as we get to the reception, we're literally having it in a pub and we're having a meal, then you don't need to book me for another 4 hours.
Exactly.
For a whole reception, you just need me for another hour just to see people having a bit of fun and sitting down for a meal, you know. And that just makes it a lot more flexible and easy, and less just more cost effective for couples as well, I think.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, I was speaking to one bride yesterday, and she's going to do something very, very small in December, hopefully, and then have the party when she can. And you know, she was saying, and then, you know, my mum said I had to have a photographer. And it's like, no, you do, because this is the really important thing that you never want to forget. You know, this is the point that you became Mrs., you know, and I think, you know, there are definitely, you know, there's lots of different ways you can do it, but I think to miss out on the photography is quite a big piece of the puzzle. So I think, you know, people shouldn't cut corners just because they're making it smaller. They need to still remember that this is a very special day for them and their families, and you need to document that. I
always say, think of the sort of following generations as well. Like, I love being able to look at my parents' wedding photos, grandparents, and obviously in this day and age it's so much more accessible as well, because everything's digital and all that kind of thing. So it does, I definitely think of that, and I say that to my families as well. I say, like, you know, quite often I'll go in for a session and just taking pictures of the kids, and the parents don't want to be in it. I say, you don't have to print these out, you don't have to have a big photo of yourself on the wall, but for your kids to be able to look back when they're older and see those pictures. So it's the same concept. Your children or your grandchildren to be able to look back and see that moment that you became nanny and granddad is really beautiful, isn't it? So sometimes it's not really selfish, it's more for other people as well.
I still remember the day I found my parents. My parents actually, I'm going to just say, I haven't told anyone this before. My parents were probably the original intimate wedding people. So this was 1975. They got married and they had town hall. Mum was just wearing a little tea dress. Dad had flares on, just had parents and brothers and sisters. Not even all the brothers and sisters made it. And then they went to a local little Italian restaurant in Hampstead and didn't even tell the restaurant it was a wedding, just booked a table for, I don't know, like 15, 20 people. And then had a meal. The restaurant then found out it was a wedding. They went out and got all the flowers for them and they gave them fizz for free and things. And then a few weeks later, they then had the party, which was on a barge at Camden Lock. And, you know, being, you know, a kid, seeing these photos of my parents like partying in the 70s on a barge in Camden was like, what? Like, my parents were young. You know, what is this? And I think, you know, I remember the room I was in my childhood home, you know, I remember finding those photos and it was so special that I think, you know, we can never underestimate the value of photography in our lives. Whether, you know, I mean, the phones that we have today are basically cameras, aren't they? So it's wonderful that we're documenting everything in our lives. But I think where you have these very special moments, it's so important to have someone that really knows what they're doing and has that eye to capture those special moments.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well done. Thank you. I think what you're doing is fabulous. You've got a lot of fans out there throughout. We've had so many comments about how fabulous you are from previous couples that you've worked with, and just so many lovely things that people have written about you in the notes. So huge well done for getting such a great name for yourself out there in the industry, and continue doing what you're doing because it's brilliant. And I hope that we can hopefully do a Sweet 15 or whatever it is at that time, scalable wedding at some point soon in the near future when we're all allowed to start celebrating weddings again. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Constance. It's been great.
Brilliant. Take care. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.